The ghost of Earth. Nobody had ever seen a ship like it before, not in this quadrant, not in any charted corner of the galaxy. It appeared without warning, rising from the dead silence of a wormhole that hadn't even been there 5 seconds earlier. The rift tore open space like paper, and from it came the warship, blacker than the void, shaped like a nightmare with jagged wings and a body that shimmered with some kind of armor the Galactic Empire's sensors couldn't identify. On the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Vornaxis, High Marshal Zerk clicked his mandibles nervously. The Empire's fleet had conquered planets just for the thrill of it. They'd vaporized moons to send a message, but even he, a seasoned killer from the Rection Hive, felt a slither of unease crawl down his spine. This wasn't just a warship. This was something else. Scan it, Zerk barked immediately. The sensor drones didn't even return. They just vanished, no data, no readings, not even a blip. The warship hovered like a predator that knew it was at the top of the food chain. Its hull rippled like liquid metal, and glowing crimson lines pulsed across its sides, beating in time with some deep internal energy source. No signal, no code, no identification. It just watched. And then it spoke, not through radio, not through the usual universal protocol. It injected its voice directly into every mind on every ship within 10,000 kilometers. We warned you. You took what was ours. Now we take it back. The voice was human, rough, growly, full of venom, ancient and angry. Zerek recoiled, his inner membrane twitching. What in the galaxy is that thing? Growled Admiral Nissel, a crystalline being from Theos Cluster. Even she looked spooked, her glowing body dimming at the edges. It's speaking directly into our minds. It's a violation of mental space, whispered a junior tactician. That's illegal under the Interstellar Code. This ship doesn't care about your codes, Zurich muttered. That's a human vessel. There was silence on the command deck, and then a wave of fear hit. Humans had been declared extinct over a century ago, wiped out during the Siege of Sol. Their home system was obliterated, their colonies burned. The Empire had made sure of it, hadn't they? So what the hell was this? And then the human warship moved. It didn't fire lasers or plasma beams. It screamed, a sonic pulse that tore through shields like wet paper, making every crew member in the fleet vomit, scream, or collapse. Thousands of ships blinked out. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Deleted. Panic spread like wildfire. What kind of weapon is that? Nis cried, clutching her head. It's not a weapon, it's a message, Zurich replied, his voice barely a whisper now. They're telling us we're not alone anymore. The warship launched no fighters. It didn't need to. It drifted through the Empire's fleet like a shadow, and every ship it passed either shut down completely or imploded in on itself like crushed tin. The Galactic Empire had never seen anything like it. This wasn't warfare, it was judgment. And behind the horror, the whispers began from soldiers, from slaves, from rebel cells, the humans are back. They didn't die. They evolved. No, they became monsters to survive. And out there in the wreckage, the human warship turned slowly and disappeared back into the rift. But its warning echoed through every mind in the sector, next time, we bring the fleet. 2 days passed. 2 long, silent, blood-chilling days. The Imperial Command Hub on Virex 9 was in full lockdown. Hundreds of high-ranking officials from across the Galactic Empire had been pulled in for an emergency assembly. The atmosphere was nothing like usual, no pomp, no posturing, just fear. Cold, honest fear. Zurich stood before the gathering, his eyes sunken, his voice flat. We lost 17 dreadnoughts, 49 cruisers, nearly 80 support crafts, all without firing a single successful shot. There were no survivors on any of those ships. Not one. A low murmur spread through the crowd. Some dismissed it, still clinging to denial. Others couldn't stop trembling. The Emperor's hologram flickered into view, his hulking form dwarfing the rest of the council. Emperor Kelsar was not a being easily shaken. He had personally executed planetary governors with his bare claws, but even his tone had a strange twitch to it now. What do we know of the humans? Zerek hesitated. Very little. They were confirmed extinct after the Siege of Sol. Our records show no surviving colonies. Their technology, while chaotic and unpredictable, never approached what we saw 2 days ago. Then explain that ship, the Emperor growled. We can't. Nothing in our archives comes close. We recovered no debris. Their energy signature is untraceable. It's like they returned from death with weapons forged in some hell we can't understand. Kelsar's eyes narrowed. Then we prepare for hell. That same day, a secret recon probe was launched. It was cloaked in triple-phase shadow tech, designed to be undetectable even by fourth-dimensional entities. Its mission, go back to the edge of the rift where the warship appeared, find answers. It never reported back. But the probe's final recording, just 3 seconds of scrambled video, leaked. The footage showed something the Empire refused to admit was possible, a fleet. Dozens of human warships, each different in shape and style but with the same impossible aura. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Each ship bore a name etched in rough Terran script: Vengeance, Soul's Fury, Earth's Ghost, and one that made even the Emperor pause: the Children of No Mercy. The panic was no longer silent. The civilian sectors started to riot. News spread fast and raw, carried through underground info channels and rebel frequencies. The Empire had lied, humans were alive, and they weren't coming in peace. Resistance groups, long hunted, weakened, fragmented, started resurfacing on planets like Draxon, Gale To, and Zarn 3. Old flags were raised, not of Earth, not of Sol, but something new, a black sun over blood-red stars. The symbol of vengeance. And among the terrified elite of the Empire, rumors spread like wildfire. They said the humans had lived in the black voids between galaxies, evolving, adapting, surviving like monsters in the dark. They said they didn't just want retribution, they wanted the galaxy to remember. And Zerk, alone in his quarters, kept replaying that voice, that horrible human voice that had crawled into his skull and branded itself there: we warned you. You took what was ours. Now we take it back. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. Because he'd been there during the siege of Sol. He had helped burn Earth. And now he was starting to believe that was the worst mistake the Empire had ever made. The sky above the prison moon of Cartes 5 was the color of ash. Down below in cell block E19, the walls vibrated with distant explosions. The guards were gone, either dead or long fled. Prisoners stood around the flickering security lights, not celebrating, not rioting, just listening. Everyone had heard the same thing on the emergency frequency loop: the Empire has been breached. The humans have returned. For Valen Rog, this was more than just news. It was prophecy fulfilled. He sat cross-legged in his cell, staring at the crude symbol he'd carved into the floor a decade ago, a crude Earth with burning wings. The others used to mock him for it, called him the last human loyalist, a delusional relic of a dead species. But now, even the cynics were quiet. Was it real? Someone asked from the cell across. That ship, the thing that erased the fleet near Thranox. They say it screamed, said another, and the sound alone killed 6,000 beings. It wasn't just a ship, Valen finally spoke, rising to his feet. It was a warning and a promise. They all turned to him now, those same men and creatures who once ridiculed him. What promise? That the age of cowards is over. That the Empire will pay. Valen was no ordinary prisoner. He'd once served in the Terran Shadow Corps, a Black Ops division the Empire tried to erase from history after the war. He'd been captured after the fall of Mars's last resistance outpost. Tortured. Forgotten. But not broken. He had always known the humans would return. He just never thought they'd return like this. A loud boom shook the prison. The main gate's blast door began to bend inward like paper. Screams echoed in the distance. The prison's AI flickered online, garbled and frantic. Security breach. Breach. Unknown vessel. Imminent collapse. Flee. Then it cut off. Total silence for 3 heartbeats. The prisoners stared at one another. And then the blast door exploded inward. The smoke cleared to reveal a single figure. Tall, wrapped in dark exoarmor, the kind not seen since the Old War. Red visor, black shoulder plates, the emblem of Earth cracked down the middle still visible on the chest. The figure said nothing, just stepped inside, slow and calm, as if it had all the time in the galaxy. And Valen smiled. He knew that armor. Kara, he whispered. The figure turned toward him slightly. The helmet peeled back, revealing a face Valen had memorized in another life. Pale, scarred, eyes like frostbitten steel. "Been a while," she said, voice dry as a grave. "You're alive," he breathed. "They told me you died during the fall of Titan." "I did," she said, "but death doesn't mean much anymore." She tossed him a pulse rifle, an old Earth model, burn-scored but functional. "Suit up. You're coming with us." "Us." She tilted her head toward the hole behind her. Shapes moved in the smoke. Humanoid. Monstrous. Armored. A squad of human specters. "We're everywhere now," she said, "and this galaxy is going to remember why it feared us." Around them, prisoners dropped to their knees, not out of fear, out of something worse for the Empire. Hope. "Where are we going?" Phelan asked. "To burn down the thing that tried to bury us," she said. "Starting with the bastards who bombed Earth." "You remember Zerk?" Phelan's eyes narrowed. "Too well." "Good, because he's next." She turned, walking into the smoke again. Valen looked down once more at the carving on the floor, Earth with burning wings. Not a dream. Not madness. Prophecy. He slung the rifle over his shoulder and followed her into the darkness, heart pounding with something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Because the galaxy had poked a sleeping dragon, and now the humans were awake. High Marshal Zurich didn't eat, didn't sleep. He barely even moved anymore. He sat alone in his fortified quarters aboard the flagship Dominion's Wrath, orbiting above the capital world of Virex Prime. His claws twitched occasionally, involuntarily. His usually proud wings had gone dull, pressed tight against his back like a sick creature hiding from predators. Outside his chamber's window, the might of the Empire glistened in formation: warships, battle cruisers, planetary defense cannons. It should have comforted him. It didn't. He knew it wouldn't matter. The humans were back, and they were doing something far worse than fighting. They were making people remember. Across the galaxy, planets once loyal to the Empire were turning. Whole cities were rioting, broadcasting human propaganda like it was a religious awakening. A single phrase repeated across every hacked frequency, from mining colonies to academic hubs: "We were broken, but we learned. Now we return not as victims, as nightmares." The worst part? No one could stop it. The humans weren't coming in fleets to occupy or destroy, they were sending in ghosts. Elite strike teams. Black ships. Coordinated sabotage. Planetary governors were being found with their skulls crushed in their own bunkers. Empire-controlled news centers were exploding mid-broadcast. Entire outposts vanished without a trace. Zirek had seen the footage. That face. The woman with the pale skin and dead eyes. The one leading the squad on Cardi's 5. She didn't wear insignia. She didn't speak much. She just left messages behind, scrolled in Terran script on blood-stained walls: "This is for Earth." She was on every bounty list now. Code name, the Revenant. And she wasn't alone. The rebels were calling themselves the Black Sun Armada, a scattered fleet that didn't exist on any radar, made up of exiles, survivors, and something far worse, new humans, forged in deep space where physics bent and time twisted. The Empire's intelligence division insisted they were few in number, but Zurich knew better. He remembered what humans were like before the fall. Clever. Stubborn. Vicious when cornered. They never stopped adapting. You couldn't break them, not truly. And the ones who'd survived the siege of Saul? They weren't just survivors, they were what survived hell. Suddenly, a sharp beep cut through the silence of his chamber. Incoming call. Priority override. He clicked to accept. A three-dimensional projection flickered into place. It was Emperor Kelsar. Zurich straightened immediately. "Marshal Zurich," the Emperor said, voice like distant thunder. "We've received a message, intercepted from an unsecured rebel channel." Zurich nodded grimly. "Another threat?" The Emperor shook his head slowly. "Worse. A promise." The audio played. It was rough, staticky, but unmistakably human. "We don't want your surrender. We want your screams. You taught us extinction. Now we teach you revenge. Then the voice laughed. Cold. Hollow. No joy in it, just venom. Zirek, you burned Earth. We remember. We're coming for you. The audio cut. Zurich felt a tremor run through his bones. He had never told anyone he'd been part of the team that authorized the bombardment. His name was buried deep in classified logs. How had they known? They've breached our archives, Zurich whispered. This is personal. They want to dismantle the Empire piece by piece. Kelsar growled, and you are now their symbol of vengeance. I should step down, Zurich said suddenly. If I go into hiding. No, the Emperor interrupted. You will be bait. Zirek looked up, eyes wide. You will remain in command. We'll leak intel, let them come. And when they do, the trap will close. Zirek nodded stiffly. It was a plan. A desperate one, but it was something. The call ended. He stood slowly, walking towards the window. The stars blinked peacefully above, but he could feel the storm coming in his chest and the gravity of the air. It was like the galaxy had shifted. Behind him, the lights in the room flickered, just for a second, but he noticed. And somewhere deep in the black space beyond radar and reach, Karara the Revenant watched her target from a hidden scout vessel. He's on the move, she muttered. Just like we wanted. Violen nodded beside her. Ready for part 2. She didn't answer. Her eyes were already locked on the Dominion's wrath, and her finger was tightening on the activation switch. The Dominion's wrath began its slow orbit around Varix Prime, unaware that the ghost of Earth's fury was already watching from less than 1,000 km away. Kara stood in the observation bay of the Black Sun Wraith, a vessel so deeply cloaked in stealth tech it didn't reflect light or gravity. It wasn't even visible on visual scanners. To the Empire, it didn't exist. But to Kara and the few like her who had survived what the galaxy tried to forget, it was home. She studied the Imperial flagship, watching the shimmering blue shields ripple across its hull. Zerx moved into Sector 3, Violen reported from behind her. Standard defense posture, but they've got fighters patrolling at 3-minute intervals, rotational pattern, and at least 2 carrier cruisers within strike range. Kara didn't turn. They're waiting for us. They want us to come, he said, stepping closer. This is the trap. I know. And we're still going. Karara's eyes narrowed. Of course we are. She turned, walking across the control platform toward the mission table where the other 4 members of her team were reviewing layouts of the Dominion's wrath. They were all different, one part Terran, one part something else. Survivors who had spent too long in the void between galaxies, in abandoned science vessels, old mining colonies, and deep black places where even the laws of physics grew tired. Let's be clear, Kara said, voice firm. This isn't about killing Zerk. That's the easy part. Then what's the hard part? Asked Ral, a 4-armed soldier who'd once fought in Earth's final trench on Europa. Making sure everyone sees it, she tapped the display. We override their comms, hijack the broadcast stream. We show every system, every loyalist, every citizen exactly what happens to Empire monsters. You want to execute him live. I want them to remember Earth. I want them to see that we didn't die. We evolved. And we haven't forgotten. No one argued, because they all wanted the same thing. Zurich wasn't just a target, he was a symbol, the one who had ordered the orbital bombardment that turned Earth's oceans into vapor and sent its cities tumbling into craters. He didn't just destroy their world, he laughed doing it. Karara still remembered the broadcast. Zirek on the screen, saluting the Empire's victory, standing beneath the burning image of Earth. She hadn't seen that image since, not until she woke up floating in the ruins of Titan's escape facility, barely alive. A machine kept her breathing, a forgotten AI reactivated during the collapse, repaired her piece by piece with stolen tech and alien scrap. And when she finally stood again, all that remained was vengeance. Now it was time. Suit up, she said. We breach in 30. Inside the Dominion's wrath, Zurich paced his private corridor, surrounded by 2 elite guards and a nervous young aide. Sweat glistened on the aide's temples despite the climate control. There are rumors, the aide whispered, about the Revenant. That she's already in this system. She's a shadow, Zurich spat. A ghost with good press. We've laid the perfect trap. She'll come, and we'll end this pathetic rebellion with one broadcast. But if she's evolved like they say, then she bleeds like the rest. Zurich didn't notice the flicker in the lights. He didn't hear the low static crackling from the floor panels. And he certainly didn't hear the soft click from the vent above. But he noticed the explosion. It hit the corridor next to his, throwing him to the ground, blowing out oxygen seals. Fire. Smoke. Chaos. Lock the bulkheads, he roared, scrambling to his feet. His guards closed around him. Too late. Kara dropped from the ceiling like a shadow with form, her armor shifting, eyes glowing red. Her blade sliced through the first guard before he drew his weapon. Violin came in through the smoke, pulse rifle chattering. Zurek tried to flee. Kara grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. He stared at her, eyes wide, gills twitching. "You," he rasped. "You should be dead." She leaned in close, eyes locked on his. "I was." She activated her comm link. "Broadcast is live," Ral confirmed from the ship. Every screen in the system flickered. Every citizen, every soldier, every loyalist saw what came next. Kara turned to the camera. "This is for Earth," and pulled the blade across Zurich's throat. The scream echoed across star systems. Millions watched in silence, on factory moons, on orbiting trade hubs, even deep inside the glass towers of the Empire's bureaucratic core. Every screen flickered with static, then locked onto a single brutal image: High Marshal Zurek, blood pouring from his throat, eyes frozen wide in disbelief, collapsing to the floor as Kara stood over him like a reaper from forgotten legends. She didn't flinch, didn't gloat. She simply stared into the camera as if daring the galaxy to look away. And then the feed cut to black. For a moment, there was silence. Then chaos. In less than an hour, 3 Outer Rim colonies declared independence from the Empire. Soldiers began deserting their posts. Civilians poured into the streets, many holding makeshift banners bearing the mark of the Black Sun Armada. Even some mid-tier governors, long silent under the Emperor's rule, began secretly reaching out to rebel contacts, trying to find a way to switch sides before they were next. The fear had changed. It no longer belonged to the oppressed. Now it belonged to the throne. Deep inside the Black Sun Wraith, the team regrouped, bloodied but alive. Karara sat alone in the ship's inner chamber, her armor half stripped, the dried blood of Zurich still staining the edges of her gloves. She stared at her own reflection in the darkened panel. She didn't look like a savior. She looked like something that had crawled out of a war long buried under rubble and lies. Violin entered quietly. He'd cleaned up, his pulse rifle slung over his back, a fresh scar along his temple. "You did it," he said softly. "Zurek's gone. The whole damn galaxy saw it." Kara didn't answer. He stepped closer, uncertain. "Isn't this what you wanted?" She finally looked up at him, her voice flat. "It's not over." "No," he admitted, "but it's the turning point." Kara stood slowly, the weight of her body heavy, like each movement hurt more than it should. "They'll come harder now. Kelsar won't take this lightly. We humiliated them." That was the point. "No," she corrected. "The point was to warn them." He frowned. "Warn them? We've shown them what we're capable of. But they haven't seen our full strength yet." Her voice darkened. "We wanted them to know there's no place safe anymore. Not for war criminals. Not for tyrants." Violin hesitated, then nodded. "And what now?" Kara looked down at the blood on her gloves. "Now we make it personal for Kalzar." In the Imperial Palace on Virex Prime, the throne room shook with fury. Emperor Kelsar slammed his obsidian fist down on the command table, shattering it. Shards flew in every direction. The High Council stood frozen, none daring to speak. "She executed Zarek," the Emperor hissed, voice barely human anymore, and broadcast it like a street show in front of billions. "She's igniting rebellion in all sectors," muttered one aide. "Even the core is starting to murmur." Silence. Kelsar turned, his massive figure looming over them, his golden armor gleamed with rage. "They think this war is about revenge," he growled. "They think their fear makes them powerful. Let me show them what fear truly is." He turned to his warden general, a towering creature clad in red and steel. Initiate protocol dark. There was a long pause. Even the warden hesitated. Sire, that protocol was sealed after. Unseal it, Tsar's voice dropped to a growl that rumbled like thunder. Bring the Doombringers out of stasis. They've slept long enough. The chamber dimmed, and the Emperor's face twisted into something ancient and cruel. If the humans want to rise from the ashes, then let them burn again. Back aboard the Wraith, Carrara felt the tremor before the ship's systems detected it. A spike in subspace distortion, then a signal. Faint. Repeating. One she hadn't heard in decades. She froze. Violen looked at her. What is it? Doombringers, she whispered. He blinked. Impossible. They were outlawed after the Orion genocide. They're bringing them back, she said. The Empire's getting desperate. What do we do? Kara looked out into the void where the stars trembled in anticipation. We stop hiding, she said. And in that moment, the ghost of Earth stopped being a whisper. It became a war cry. In the cold, dead reach between galaxies, the Doombringers awoke. They didn't scream, didn't groan, didn't roar. They simply opened their eyes, dead white things rimmed with circuitry and void steel, and the galaxy began to die a little more. The stasis chambers cracked open like eggs, spilling ancient fluid onto the black floors of Vault Theta, a forbidden facility buried inside a neutron star's magnetic core, built in secret after the siege of Sol. This place had one purpose, to hold the monsters the Empire had created when it feared the humans would win. And now those monsters walked again. Each Doombringer stood nearly 3 m tall, draped in armor composed of star-forged alloy and infused with psionic dampeners so they couldn't feel pity, fear, or hesitation. Inside each one was what remained of a former warrior, alien, human, synthetic. It didn't matter. Once selected, their minds were broken and reprogrammed, turned into pure instruments of destruction. The Empire hadn't used them in decades, for a reason. They didn't just kill, they erased. And Tsar had just ordered a dozen of them deployed across rebel systems. Kara stared at the new intelligence reports with a clenched jaw. Images from the colony world of Jera 9 played on the screen. Grainy at first, then sharp. Black shapes dropping from the sky like armored meteors, each one landing silently before unleashing annihilation. The footage didn't show a firefight, it showed a purge. Whole towns gone. No screams. No bodies. Just charred ground and whispers of something that moved too fast for sensors to track. Violen spoke behind her, his voice shaking slightly. This is what they've been hiding all these years. They were saving them for us, Carrara replied coldly. Insurance, just in case we ever came back. Rael stepped into the room, red eyes flaring. 3 colonies hit in 48 hours. Minimal resistance. They're targeting any system that raised our flag, Violen muttered. No, Kara said, straightening. They're trying to break the myth. Destroy the hope we gave people when we killed Zerk. This is psychological. A counterstory. Rao leaned over the map display. We need to strike back. Show them we're not afraid of their monsters. We don't fight these things head-on, Kara said. Not yet. Valen frowned. So what then? She brought up an older file. It showed diagrams of Vault Theta, internal schematics, energy logs, stasis chamber records. We go to the source, she said. We shut the vault down. Destroy the birthing chambers. Cut the leash before they can release more. Silence followed her words. You want to break into a vault inside a neutron star? Ral asked flatly. That's suicide. No, Kara said, eyes darkening. It's war. 3 days later, the Wraith dropped out of slip space on the edge of the magnetic shell surrounding Vault Theta. The system was dead, no suns, no planets, just radiation and the heavy hum of electromagnetic death. No ships dared come here, not even scavengers. But the Wraith wasn't a normal ship. They coasted in on silent power, shields folded flat against the hull, using the star's gravity and magnetic field to slingshot toward the vault's docking spine. Inside the ship, Kara checked her armor for the 5th time. The plan was insane. She knew. But it had to be done. IOR active, Ral reported. We'll have only 7 minutes inside before the radiation fries our stealth mod. More than enough, Kara replied. They launched. The boarding hooks caught on the outer ring of Vault Theta, digging into ancient alloy. The hole peeled open under Rail's plasma cutter, and the team slipped inside. Everything was dark, silent, like the place itself was asleep and dreaming of slaughter. They moved fast, sliding through corridors lined with stasis tubes and heavy vault doors. Every panel they passed whispered the same word, unstable. As they neared the core chamber, Violin paused beside a sealed tube. His eyes widened. Inside floated something human, or what was left of it, a body stripped of hair, with eyes replaced by chrome lenses, limbs fused with weaponry, chest open to reveal a pulsing core. He stepped back. They were using our own, he whispered. Humans. Carrara's voice cracked. They turned us into weapons, even after we died. Ral slammed the charge onto the main console. You want to give them a message, he growled. Let's burn this nightmare down. Kara nodded, her voice low. Light it up. The explosion tore through Vault Theta like a cleansing fire. No more Doombringers. No more Vault. And across the galaxy, every rebel world cheered because the humans hadn't just survived the monsters, they'd killed them at the roots. The galaxy trembled. News of the Vault Theta destruction rippled outward like a shock wave, bouncing off comms relays and smuggler frequencies, amplified by underground networks and rebel broadcasters. Every corner of the Empire, every system, every planet, every throne room and slum heard the same phrase within a day: the monsters are dead. The Vault is gone. Earth remembers. Kara didn't make a speech. She didn't need to. The fire spoke for her. On Virex Prime, Emperor Kelsar stood before a fractured war map in the Imperial War Chamber, surrounded by silence. None of his advisors dared speak. He could feel it, the shifting tide. His grip, once absolute, now slipped like sand through fingers. Entire battalions defected overnight. Entire sectors went dark, not from damage but from defiance. They weren't afraid anymore. They were angry. And worse, they had hope. She was supposed to be dead, he muttered, barely audible. Her species extinct. I watched Earth burn. A low voice answered from the shadows behind him, the Warden General, his last remaining loyal enforcer, a thing of metal and rage. You underestimated what pain makes of a people. Kelsar turned sharply. Then perhaps it's time I remind them what true power looks like. He reached for the console embedded in his throne, a final measure, a code buried beneath layers of protocols and blood locks. Something built in secret after the siege of Saul, Operation Eclipse. A system-cleansing weapon, something meant to wipe entire quadrants. But as his hand hovered above the activation pad, the lights died. The walls flickered, and every screen in the war chamber flashed with a single symbol, a black sun over burning stars. Hello, Kelsar, came the voice. You wanted to bury Earth, but all you did was plant a seed. Kelsar's hands curled into fists. How did they breach our systems? But he already knew. This wasn't just warfare anymore. It was vengeance wearing 1,000 faces. On board the Black Sun Wraith, drifting silently above a newly liberated colony world, Carrara stood on the bridge, watching the stars realign. Her team behind her, wounded, weary, but alive. Around them, smaller rebel ships blinked in and out of formation, messengers of a new era. They had burned the Vault. They had ended the Doombringers. And now, for the first time since the fall of Earth, they were not just fighting back. They were winning. Valen stepped beside her, looking out through the viewport. We've got transmissions from over 100 systems. Civil uprisings, desertions, Empire stations abandoning their posts. Kara didn't smile. She couldn't, not yet. There's still Kaler, she said. And the core systems are locked behind fleets. He won't go quietly. He's afraid. Good. She turned to the crew. Rial was patching up his shoulder. Sarah, their comms engineer, had finally removed her helmet, her eyes bloodshot but defiant. Even the new recruits, young, broken things they'd picked up along the way, stood taller now. We've come from nothing, Carrara said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper but reaching every ear in the room. From the rubble, from exile, from the edge of space where the Empire tossed us like trash. She looked around at the faces watching her. They thought they erased us, but we were learning, adapting, becoming something they could never understand. Kara clenched her fists. They called us extinct. She pointed toward the star map showing Tsar's palace. Let's show them what extinction really looks like. 1 week later, the Black Sun Armada fell like judgment. No warnings, no declarations, just fire. Carrara led the charge, her ship cutting through the last of the Empire's remaining defense grid like a blade through mist. Fighter squadrons with patched-together hulls and stolen weapons, piloted by former slaves, deserters, and orphans, pushed through the heart of Virex Prime's airspace. The palace fell in hours. Tsar made it to the throne room. He died there, not by blade, not by bullet, but by fear alone. Surrounded, watching the humans rise from the ashes he thought he'd created. Kara didn't gloat. She simply placed a flag in the center of his throne, the old Earth symbol, its continents scorched, its stars burning black. They didn't rebuild the Empire. They let it rot. Because what came next wouldn't be ruled by thrones or chains. It would be built by the broken, the survivors, the ghosts who refused to fade. And in the end, the galaxy did remember Earth, not as the planet that died, but as the name whispered before every tyrant fell. Earth remembers. Earth returns. Earth wins.